Thanks for watching Numbskull News. And today we're going to talk about the schedule, the Big 12 schedule again. And needless to say, a lot of people are not very happy about it. I am one of those people. I think there was a missed opportunity. I think pods was the right thing to do, the right way to go. But, the schedule as it is, it's not horrible. A lot of people were just up in arms. I don't get it. I mean, I think it would have been cool to have the pods. I think with that kind of pod kind of deal going on, you would have negated a lot of bitching. But they'd elected not to do it. And instead, they go with some kind of matrix, computer derived, whatever. I'm not exactly sure. But essentially, everyone's going to play each other 3 times over the next 4 years. That's kind of where it boils down to. And everyone's got to suck it up and play ball. However, I'm not going to let go with the pod thing. Just because they didn't do it right now doesn't mean they won't do it in the future. And I think they should. The NFL uses pods. We call them divisions, right? The NFC East, the AFC East, the NFC West, North, South, AFC West, North, South. It works. I mean, it's undisputable. It works. So I think the Big 12 still has a pod future. So I'm going to lay out what my pods looked like and what I thought, it should have looked like right now. And then we're going to go and extrapolate and we're going to speculate about what teams may be added in the future and what future pods may look like. All right, so this is how I thought was the perfect way to do the pods. You had a West pod with Utah, BYU, Arizona, and Arizona State. Then you have the Texas pod. This kind of rubs some people the wrong way. Too bad. I thought it was perfect. TCU, Baylor, Texas Tech, and of course, Houston. The North pod, Colorado, Kansas, Kansas State, OSU. Again, another perfect pod. Now, the East pod was always going to be a pain in the ass just because of the geography. However, I thought West Virginia, Cincinnati, UCF, and Iowa State made the most geographical sense. Now, doing pods like that, would that negate Farmageddon? I suppose it would. However, you don't get Farmageddon every year now anyway. You get it 3 of the 4 years, but there is the 2027 year where there's no Farmageddon. Well, maybe if it got better ratings, you may have still got Farmageddon. However, Kansas State versus Kansas, that's a way more attractive rivalry to go on to the future. So, what we need to do is extrapolate this crap out. All right, because everyone's thinking we're going to get 4 teams, at least 4 teams from the ACC. So that's what I'm going to go with. We're going to become a 20-team conference eventually one day. So let's see what that looks like. Now, you can speculate all you want, but this, I believe, is these 4 teams, these ACC teams, I think represent the more than likely thing to happen in the future, right? Pitt, Virginia Tech, NC State, and Louisville. I think they would make great additions into the Big 12. But how do you fit them in, right? We're going to have to change up, unfortunately, some of the pods to properly incorporate this. And this is my best thought process. Number one, we'll have to change the name of the Texas pod, and you'll see why in a minute. So now it will become the South pod. And reason being, we're going to have to put Oklahoma State in the South pod. So that's a complete pod now. But there's more changes to be made. We're going to have to gut this North pod a little bit. We're going to put Colorado in the West pod with their old pack mates. So that'd be the Pac West pod. And now you slide over Iowa State. So now in the North pod, you get Farmageddon again. I'll be damned. but you will also need to include Louisville. And just to make this thing make sense, the only way to do it, move Cincinnati. That way there's a little rivalry there between Louisville and Cincinnati. Now the North Pod is done, and the rest is very, very simple. You get the backyard brawl, you get Virginia Tech, you get NC State, and yes, UCF is going to have to stick in the Eastern Pod. And that's a great 20-team conference. However, there's a few questions about the future here. Let's say an opportunity arises. All right, let's just throw it out there. Miami, Duke, a couple of primo programs like that become available to the Big 12. You're already at 20. I think it would take something like this to move you past 20. So if you do, this is where it gets interesting and how this could possibly work out. Right off the bat, you're thinking, okay, Duke should go right into the East Pod, no problem, right? There's six teams in that pod. You get a 16 pod. But what the hell do you do with Miami? All right. And I'm looking around trying to figure out where to put them. And it's just going to be too uneven. We need two more teams here. We need two more teams to make this work. Oregon State. Now, I'm just saying Oregon State. I mean, it could easily be Washington State. It could be Boise State. It could be San Diego State, whatever, right? And I'm putting Memphis in, but, put your favorite American school in there. It would have to be a group of five, or, if those teams are in the ACC later on and find their way in there, there's something you could choose from. Oregon State from whatever the new pack is going to be. So you would have to do something like that in order to get to 24. And who knows what, this is probably well into the future. Who knows what kind of money is available to pay for those schools? Don't know. I'm just throwing this out there on what a far distant future, like somewhere maybe mid 2030s pods and Big 12 could look like. So in this scenario, of course, the Beavers get to the West Pod. That's real simple. What is not simple is exactly what do you do? I think maybe Memphis goes into the North Pod. And then, I don't know, it looks weird, but Miami into the South Pod maybe? See what I mean? It's janky. That's the only way I could put it. It's kind of janky, right? We're all over the place here. I don't like the way this looks. All right, so the constants are going to be Miami and Duke. So let's change some of this up. First off, no Beavers. No Beavers. So how do we do this? Now we're short on the West. I think what you do, you take Lubbock, move them Red Raiders right about there. Now I love Memphis, but let's move them out of the way for just a minute. All right. Now, what makes this work properly, to me, is you got to have, I think Miami still works in the South Pod. Let's get Oklahoma State out of the way. UCF has got to be with them. It's the only thing that really makes sense. So now you only have 5 teams in that East Pod. We're back in trouble again. Hold on. Memphis, we can squeeze Memphis right in there in the East Pod. Now we're back to 6 in the East. Damn, we're at 5 in the North. So what do we do? Here you go. Now we got 5 in the North. Or sorry, now we got 6 in the North. So now the East looks great. I don't think West Virginia would bitch at all if that's their pod. The North Pod, I don't really think that's not janky at all. I think that works. I think everyone can be pretty damn happy about all of that. The West Pod, Texas Tech is a little bit of the odd man out, but not that bad. The Arizona school's not that bad at travel. Colorado's not that bad at travel. Utah's not that bad. So it kind of works there. And I think the West schools would love having a Texas school in their pod. So I think that all works out. But if you notice, we took away the Beavers. So we're one shy in the South here. What to do? Well, how about that, folks? All right, you got 3 Texas schools, 3 Florida schools. You talk about a recruiting nightmare. 2 of the best states in the country all in one pod, baby. All in one pod. I think that would be amazing. Now, if you have a reason to bitch about that 24 team league, you have serious mental problems because there's nothing to bitch about. At this point, all right, within your pod, the South pod is probably the worst on the travel part of it. I don't think TCU, I don't think Baylor or Houston would have an issue with that. I don't think Miami, UCF, or USF would have a problem with that. I think that would make everybody extremely happy. Now, would we get Miami? Don't know about that. Don't know about that. Will we get Duke? I don't know. All right, this is just speculation. This is pipe dreams. This is just whatever. To me, this is the dream scenario for the future of the Big 12. I still say we got a shot at North Carolina, the Tar Heels. If we get Tar Heels and Duke, that would probably be a little bit more of the dream scenario, and cut Memphis out of that and replace them with UNC. That's the actual huge pipe dream scenario. And we'll see how all that plays out in the future. But pods can still work and work beautifully in the future. And look, I'm not going to give up on that. I'm not giving up on the pod thing. To me, I'm looking at this 4-year schedule stretch as everyone needs to prove themselves. You want a natural rival, you want something like that, build one. Build it. And don't cry me a river about Farmageddon. Nobody outside of Ames and Manhattan was watching that shit. Nobody. So, and that's a 100+ year rivalry. If it was going to be some nationally spotlighted rivalry, it would have already happened. And just in case you're wondering, you may think, well, TCU and Baylor is not so big time nationally. You're kind of right. But look at where that rivalry is. DFW and Waco. Right there in the Texas Triangle. In case you don't know what that is, that's DFW down to Austin, San Antonio region, Houston, back up to DFW. It's a perfect triangle. Well, almost perfect. Anyway, it's the biggest growth center in the entire nation as far as people migrating to that area inside that triangle. Waco's right in the middle of it. Baylor's right in the middle of it. And of course, you got the Horned Frogs in Fort Worth. That's huge. Those ratings between those schools grow every year. People are interested in that rivalry. And in Texas, of course, the biggest rivalry is UT versus OU, Red River. Next to that, and it's going to pick back up starting next year, is Texas versus A&M. Now, after those 2 rivalries, it's TCU versus Baylor. All right, it hadn't been around forever, but there's a lot of history already with huge stakes between those 2 teams. Why is the Red River such a big deal? Because so many years, whoever won that was going to go on and win the conference, possibly a national title. So it was huge implications. I mean, what are the implications with Farmageddon? I'll wait. I mean, at least with TCU and Baylor, the implications are several times the winners of that go on to win the Big 12. So there's something at stake. Could be a Big 12 title. I mean, that's kind of that's the that's what's gone on in the past. Do I think there should be more than 4 protected rivalries inside the Big 12? Yes. How do you get that? Pods. Pods. You get a shit ton of rivalries every year and you build them over time. That's the only way to do it. And hopefully the Big 12 pulls their head out one day and realizes the pod thing is the way to go. It's the only way to go. Anyway, that's all I got on this crap. I'll be back with some other crap later. Bye.